Okay, this is not a new religion, true religion. I don't wear the true religion. Flow congruent, movement, get into it. I am not in it for high praise. Only the highest get my praise. True that it's imminent, boy, my deliverance. See his deliverance over the sentiments. Even my nemesis got options. Rise and fall like stock options. Watch, fight, pray, the only option. All unto him. Premonitions, opposition want my position. Hold gold in these compositions, no competition. See through the envy. A bunch of men with female tendencies sit around gossiping with negative energy. Like you my people, you see through, could never be my equal. Forgiven yet not forgotten, there'll never be a sequel. I never fold on my people, you looking more like sheeple. Fickle, feeble, I'm a staple, favored from the holy steeple. I feel the tides changing, my people counting on me to add like we calculating.
Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today on the journey towards self-mastery. Our next guest hails from South Central LA. He's an actor, writer, an award-winning director, and a Christian rapper. He wrote, produced, directed, and acted in his play, Woman to Woman. As a Christian artist, he's produced over 3 albums, including Bold, This Is Not the Album, and 7 Talks, Volume 1. He's the founder of Sam 7 Productions, a faith-based production company that specializes in film, theater, and music. Let's welcome today Mr. Leon Anderson to the program.
What's going on, brother? Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for coming through, man. Appreciate having you, man. It's been a little minute, man.
Man. It's been some time in the making for sure.
Yes, sir. But I think the ones
I'm
that
happy to be here.
Yeah, man. The ones that we wait on are definitely the ones that turn out to be the best, man. Because I first heard you when you were doing your 7 streams on Instagram.
Okay.
You were doing like the covers and all that. And that was getting me. I was looking, tuning in every week. I'm like, yo, this is really dope, man.
I appreciate you.
Within that, man, I'm like, this dude has some skills, not only just, your spitting and rhyming, but I was looking at the way you were producing, the film, it almost looked like a movie almost, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So then I found out you had some background directing and writing and all that stuff. And I could see how you infuse that into your artistry, man. So I really, appreciated seeing that, man. And
for sure.
Start diving into the work, man. So appreciate your work, man.
Man, I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, man. So before we get into, your story, there's this whole, debate over Christian rap, what it is, what it means. There are some artists that a lot of people consider Christian artists. Like I think NF is considered like a Christian artist, but I've heard in his interviews, he doesn't consider himself, a Christian artist or a Christian rapper or whatever it is. And this whole, this entire debate of what exactly Christian rap is do you have to talk about God in your records, every record, and, how does it work and this and that? So do you have your own kind of definition of what you think, Christian rap is?
Man, that's good that you touched on that, because that is such a high debate. I think it's not a homie that I have that's in this space where this conversation don't come up. So that's definitely a high debatable topic. For me, it's what it sounds like, to be a follower of Christ and to be a rapper. That's just how I put it. Now, when you break down the details of what gives you the justification of being a Christian rapper, I think it differentiates by each artist. What I personally believe is that it could have a vibe, it can have a groove, but it should have some theological aspect, because again, with it being that specific as a Christian rapper, it should always be leading back to Christ, not necessarily leading back to us. You know what I mean? So that's more so my take on it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just getting back into, how you got into everything. So you have a song on your first album called Westmont, and it's kind of paying homage. Man. Yeah. It's paying homage to, where you grew up.
I come from a city where we admire helicopters more than airplanes because we seen them more. We learned our alphabets and numbers from spray paintings on the corner store, where colors had definitions. It'll cost your life to get it twisted. When they ask where you from, they didn't mean your location or distance. Back when we drunk sugar water and Kool-Aid and had a pocket full of loose change.
At Westmont, California, and LA. And South Central LA, man. So we all know South Central LA in the movies and the picture that's painted of South Central LA, man. So was it that same picture for you growing up? Can you walk us through that?
In the movies, you got the watered down version of it.
That's great.
It's a little more raw and a little more real, than that. I speak on my section in particular. We weren't outside as far as in the mix of the things that were going on, but we wasn't excluded from seeing it either. You know what I mean? And so it's really like that, the things that are depicted, not just in the films, but even in that record that you mentioned, Westmont Lessons. You could Google right now, Westmont, California, and you'll see how the newspapers even named it Death Alley.
Wow.
In that 2 mile radius, that 3 mile radius, a lot of people unfortunately lost their lives. And so growing up there, man, I really got to give credit to my parents. It wasn't like we was barred in, we couldn't go outside. Nah, we had some homies who was outside and the homies went the other way. But that involvement in our life through just my parents and the other people who I had above me who were mentoring me kind of, shed the light over to me and allowed me to see, hey, I know this is what you see around you every day, but let me tell you that it's something different on the other side, because this is only going to lead to certain situations or certain places. And so I really got to credit them, because if it wasn't for them, this conversation could be a whole lot different. For real. Again, we were in the environment, so we wasn't excluded. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So was growing up, was Christianity in the church infused into your upbringing, or was it something that happened later on?
No, for sure. Man, my production company is called Sam 7 Productions, and a lot of people be like, well, where did Sam come from? Well, Sam was my grandfather, my mother's father. And though my mom, she took us to church and this and that, my grandfather was the one who really put the word in my hand. I remember, man, he would drop me off at school through my elementary years, and I don't know if folk remember these, but I had the little orange Bible. I think it had like it was either the New Testament. Yeah, it had to be the New Testament. And then it had Psalms and Proverbs in there too. Little pocket orange Bible. But my grandfather would do things like, he would be like, all right, well, if you get all the books of the Bible right today, I'm going to give you $1. And of course, back then, $1 actually got you some. You know what I mean? So be like, hey, when we get out of school, we can go to the store. I could use that $1. And so that's what he, leveraged to get me, to understand and to memorizing it, letting it stick to my spirit and learning it in my heart. Later on in life, I could have never imagined, those things that he was teaching me in that way when I was 8, 9, 10 years old will come to play a part in my purpose in this life. So I really got to credit him. So they definitely placed us in the church. But again, I always say I came to know the Lord a lot different from just being in the church. Like, yes, they trained up a child in the way they should go. So they definitely did that. Definitely a pat on the back. But again, when you come outside of the 4 walls, outside is still active. Like, you know what I mean? So even though they took us there, they couldn't just shield us from what was happening around 24/7. You know what I mean?
Man,
so,
but I mean, that's painting some pictures in my head. Like, I know in Westmont, you mentioned, seeing, loved ones die and pass in the streets and stuff like that.
Sure.
How do you develop faith and maintain that kind of seeing these things happening in your neighborhood?
It was tough because, again, man, all of my schooling, everything has been in South Central Los Angeles. So I say some of the toughest upbringings is being 12, being 13, and you attending your friend's funeral who you was just in class with, you was just shooting hoops with, and they passing away. I think that was like setting us with a tough mentality that really, truthfully, kids shouldn't have to go through or kids shouldn't have to experience. But I think those things, they kind of led to not me having a disbelief or not me having faith, but it definitely proposed a lot of questions, about why this way or this way. But the greatest thing, man, and this is kind of like what I live by. I always say, I pray that people have the encounter, because this is how, I came to know the Lord for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I pray people had an encounter, because the encounter will get them the experience, and the experience will get them the explanation. And you ain't gonna have the explanation without the experience, and you ain't gonna have the experience without that encounter. So it go all three ways, back and forth, same way.
Got it. All right. So you write, you act, you direct, and you make music and everything. So which one came first within your upbringing, and how did everything else come about?
Man, I think just first writing. I think writing was like the foundation. If you ask me what is my God-given gift, it will be writing. The other conduits of it is just how I get it out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
But the foundation of the gift is writing for sure. It came first, again, in the form of storytelling, in the form of poetry, and then it escalated more so on to music later on, and then the plays. That was a gift that God dropped in my lap that I didn't see coming. For sure. But that's how he do. Romans 8:28, all of it works together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's literally, what ended up happening. All the gifts that I had, just pouring them in a pot in a moment where I was like, God, it gotta be more than this. I would think I was like 21 or 22. And I was like, man, it got to be more to life than just this. I know you call me for a certain reasons. Is gifts that you've put in me that I feel like I'm not at that place where I'm getting it out how I feel kind of the goal level. I that's a good word for it. It's not the goal level that I was reaching at that moment. So I'm like, God, I know I don't feel this way for nothing. I know you've given me a certain gift, a certain ability. I need you to show me what to do with it. Because without that, I'm not going to know how to move or how to go. And every day I'm waking up and it's feeling a little bit miserable. It's feeling a little bit like, hey, I know I got to go to this job over here because that's what the bills is. And I got to go handle that and I got to go do that. But what you have planted inside of me is almost screaming to get out. And I don't know how to get it out. So I need you to show me how to get it out. And that's how all the plays and the writing and the stuff came about.
Right. So Woman to Woman was one of your first plays, right, that you wrote?
Nah, man. See, that's the thing, bro. Even with the music, like, when you go digging, man, I did my very first play, man, in 2014, and it was called Heaven Sent, Heaven Sent, Heaven Sent, and it was spelled different. So the first Heaven Sent was like SCENT, like the sin of heaven. The other one was CENT, like you give it your 2 cents. So like the word of God, that heaven sent, and then the last one was heaven sent, like I sent you something. So like something sent from heaven. So it was heaven sent, heaven sent, heaven sent. Man, we did free admission. We did it out the fellowship hall in the church. Look, man, we had the dream without the dollar, but we was making it work, bro. And so from 2014 is when I first did that first production. And from there, man, we just kept building and elevating it into what it is today.
Man, so eventually you did write Woman to Woman. And I was thinking, like, what kind of influences does a Black man have to write a play that is designed around women? So were women foundational in your life? Like, what inspired that?
Of course. I always giggle at that question, man, because I grew up in the house, man, all sisters, and then it was me. So that, of course, I have a really, really strong relationship with my mother, my wife, and then my 2 daughters. And so I'm like, man, my whole life is based on the foundation, of women just being around, So I wanted to tell a story. But at that point in time, when the story came, I wanted to write a story, man, that was based around women, but it also spoke from a women's perspective, and it was accurate. A lot of times you would think, like, as a man, we write a story about women and this and that, and it doesn't have any accuracy. Truth be told, I didn't see anything for women in my community to have something that they could grasp on and have something that they could stand proud of. And so that's what we presented to the stage. So the women literally took the lead, and Woman to Woman was just one. September 29th, we just wrapped up part 3 on stage. So yeah, we done went through, a trilogy of it.
And how has that the play been received by Black women and women that have come to see it?
Man, so I wrote the script right before the pandemic hit, not knowing the pandemic would hit. I was headed to Atlanta to do another show I had called Love. And that was in March. And when we got back in May, we were going to do Woman to Woman. And so I never forget, folk was like, man, you get on that plane, man, you might be stuck in a whole nother city. Cause that's when the pandemic was so new. Nobody knew any information. We just knew flights was getting grounded. So we decided not to go. So I just feel, like, man, and of course I went through that, just being honest and transparent. I'm like, God, you gave me this thing, and right now the world is shut down. So we can't even do this thing right now, But of course, hindsight 2020, I'm looking back like he preserved it for the right time, because what has happened with this production, I could have never saw coming. We debuted it out of the pandemic. People loved it. We sold it out. Raves. They asked for an encore. And then, truthfully, man, it get a little emotional right there. When we did Woman to Woman the first time, that was the last production that I did with my cousin before he passed away. And so when we did the encore, we did it in kind of like a dedication to him. And then we did the part 2 earlier this year. Then we went to Atlanta and presented part 1. And then we came back and did part 3 here. So it's been a moving piece.
Man,
yeah.
But
it's been received. We've sold out every one of them. And I don't get big on sold out. I just say, hey, sold out. So we'll just say over 1,200 eyes have seen this production, whether it's part 1, part 2, part 3. But I don't get stuck on the sold out. I'm just like, well, that just means no more people was able to come in the building and see it. But for us, we want to be able to get it to as many eyes possible. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's definitely gonna be a continuation of that, you're saying?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because Atlanta's the only one that got it so far. But we definitely pushing it in other markets. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So at the same time that you're doing the plays, are you developing your artistry in rap? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, man. So this year was probably the craziest as far, because I felt a certain nudge to have the presentation of music come forth. And I knew that I couldn't delay it, until next year, or delay it until I stopped the plays, because he was moving through the plays all year. Like, this is the first time we literally sat down in a year and a half, like where we pretty much taking this break. And so all of that time, for me, it's always an instinct, There's many different inspirations on how people write their music and different things like that. For me, it's more so of an outlet. So I could get a beat, and if I get a beat, I could tell within the first 30 seconds to a minute if this is going to be something that I'm going to continue, to write out. I'm going to continue to chew. And then the Holy Spirit kicks in as well and start moving the pen. And then it'd be like, I can't put it down, until it's completed. And so I definitely wrote throughout the whole process of doing these plays. When I could, I would take my time to go record it, write it, focus in, even if that's me, moving around the city, just having a track constantly playing in the car with me. It's a bunch of little minute details to getting it out. Yeah. So
right. So I know in a previous interview you mentioned that you didn't really grow up with ears to Christian rap. You grew up
0%.
So what did you grow up listening to? And then,
man, I grew up, and before I put it on out there, man, ain't it good that God saves us and changes us, man? But I grew up, of course, man, Pac, Biggie. Who else? I'm trying to think that literally played in the house. DMX, Ludacris, Fabulous. I think everybody had to Get Rich or Die Trying with 50. Man, yes, you name it, man. My pops is like a music connoisseur. I mean, he's been a collector of music since his young days, and he was always playing oldies and other records, but he was up to date too. And so music kind of just always flowed, within my household. And so those are the folks who I can remember vividly, being like, okay, I hear that. I identify
Right.
with that as I'm listening to it. Yeah.
Right. And if anybody listens to you rap and everything, they're listening to
Yep.
punchlines, they're listening to something
Yep.
that's very cerebral. There's a direction to where it's
Absolutely.
going. You telling stories and all that. Like,
Yeah.
it don't seem like this just came about. Like, my daughter spoke to you. You mentioned you started rapping after high school. I'm like, I thought you was doing this from childhood, man. So how did it come about just after high school?
Like I would say, the gift was always there. As I was a kid, what I noticed my gift was writing. I would do it in story mode, but then I would do it in poetry, and then I would rap songs. Back then, I just never publicly, rapped in front of folk or, rapped like that. I didn't do that until after high school. But that gift was already rooted. So after high school, I still didn't jump off the bridge with, oh man, I'm gonna jump right into rap. It more so came to me. I remember just being able to track. I forgot the program at the time that we was using. It was something Sony, but I can't remember the recording software.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just track my friends. They would rap and this and that, blah blah. And one day, one of my friends, he was like, man, why don't you just rap? Like, cause I'll be in there, helping them like, hey, put this word with this word. Because again, the gift was already there. So I had the foundation of, rhyming and schemes and storytelling. So it was always easy for me to, kind of play the executive producer. Oh yeah, put this with that. And my friend was just like, man, why don't you do it? And I remember getting on a microphone and my timing was terrible. But again, man, back to the word, iron sharpens iron. As I continued to be around that group, the timing got better. So already having the wordplay, the vocabulary, the style, it just needed to get the swag right. And so once I was able to, be in that circle and continue to go at it, because they was rapping every day. I mean, serious. Like they was ready to drop tapes every single day. So that competitive nature had me too. Like, I'm not going to come here and be the wackest one out of everybody every day. Like, so that helped me, sharpen up the swag on it. And once I got to that point, it was on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
So as far as, you rapping and the Christian rap, I always wonder, like, what do Christian rap artists, what do they want people that listen to their music to get from it? Like, are you looking for just Christian, listeners or people that follow, the Bible and this and that to get influenced by your music? Or do you wish to be influenced, through everybody? Like, what do you look at when you think about the people that listen to you?
That's crazy, man, because on the record For the Fallen, I say something like, Leon, this is terrible because you should definitely know your own lyrics if you're going to recite them.
That's one of my favorite joints too, For the Fallen.
Right. Come on. So I say, oh, that's why it's wild to see when the saved impressing the saved. That's what I say. They gonna be like, Lee, you got a ghostwriter? What's up? No, man, but it's a lot that go on up here, man.
It's a lot. Yep.
Yeah. So, but I say that line because for me, yes, we want to reach the save, because I believe that the save also needs that constant reminder, that constant inspiration, so that we could stay in the right mindset. We could stay in the right spirit. We could flow in the way that we're supposed to be flowing in our relationship with God. And it's more things that are of the world than it is of the kingdom. And so I definitely, am for the save, showing the save. But what I mean by that line is saved, impressing the save. If you save, that's great. But I got some homies who in Westmont who really need some help. Some homies in Westmont who hear Christian music and giggle like, bro, don't never play that. Or, bro, I'm just being honest. Or they'll be like, that's cool, but if you wasn't here, we're not going to play that. Like, and so my thing is, when I get to the microphone and when I believe God, inspires me and places something in me to give back to the people, I always wanted to be with that concept of, it may be on this side and it may be in this field, but this is talking to you too. This is talking to, I don't put it in a kind of rapping that makes you look at it like, and when I mean rapping, not R-A-P, but W-R-A-P. I don't put it in the kind of rapping that make you look like, oh man, that's just too well put together for me. Or that, I'm kind of then went through some things, and I don't know if I'm bringing it right to you, right to your doorstep, right where we from, to allow you to see, this came from where you standing. The only difference is the redemption of Christ. And in order to get redeemed, I had to accept that. And that same acceptance is available for you. And it's my job on this record to show you that same acceptance is there for you too.
Right. Now, when you mix it up like that for people that are in the streets to feel it, you might get some criticism. I know you had this thing on Instagram where you were showing some criticisms that people, say about your work and just
and
Christian,
it wasn't mine though. That's the crazy
Christian
part.
rap
in general. Christian rap in general. Yeah.
And some of it say like you're trying to use the God's name to make money and for influence and this and that. And it's not real and this, whatever it is. How do you kind of find that balance? And what do you say to those that are skeptical about what the mission actually is?
Man, I said this in a record that I haven't released yet. Basically, I got to the place of, like you said, walking through the 7 series. And I remember when I first did the 7 series, the comments that came with it. And the comments that came with it was, oh man, I ain't never heard gospel rap like that. And I looked at my cousin like, man, they better not put me in that box, bro. This ain't no gospel rap. But I had went through a transformation so deep that what was coming out of me naturally was the testimony. And so because that's what was coming out, that's what was coming out on these records. I remember, seeing the comments. I remember seeing the followers jump up. I remember seeing those things. And of course, when you're doing what God calls you to do,
right,
the enemy gonna try to detract you. So the enemy tried to plant a seed in my mind, like, oh well, man, you just being a prophet for profit. And I'm like, well, that ain't it. But I definitely didn't want to do Christian hip hop. So I'm like, all right, God, what is this? And I had to really, go into my prayer closet. And God said, but did I tell you that? Like, that's a word and a trick of the enemy. What you doing is what you're supposed to be doing. And even further, let me know it's about time that you started doing it. Because I've been trying to get you to do it forever, but you've been running away from it. Because we was like, Christian hip hop is corny. That's the truth. We was like, that ain't it. Like, we love Jesus, but if we gonna rap, we gonna spit. Like, we not gonna do that. So when the acceptance of it came, then God was like, this is what I've been calling you to do. So I had to, step on the serpent's head, and remind him, of who I am in Christ. And God definitely checked me like, man, that's not what I called you. You only move by what I called you.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
I don't judge people's religion or their faith base or their spirituality. But when you look at the Black community, there's this love and hate with Christianity and the history behind it connected with slavery and then the infighting amongst Christians and the word and what the words mean and religious wars. And there's all type of things.
It's a lot.
And different artists calling out some things. Like I recently was watching a video of Yellow Pain, and he was talking about some of the issues within the Christian church and that he still maintains his faith, but he doubts a lot of stuff that happens within that. So what are your thoughts about people that really struggle with, the idea and thoughts of Christianity and some of the negativity from the past into the present?
Speaking from non-believer standpoint or believer standpoint who have a problem with Christianity?
I guess we could look at both. Okay.
For non-believers, I go back to, man, I always pray that they have the encounter, because usually non-believers have up this fence and they've convinced themselves to stand on that other side of the fence. And so they give you a whole list and reasoning of why they on the other side of the fence. And it's hard to kind of, knock that fence down. And so my whole thing is, I hope that one day they either look over the fence are God shows that mercy and grace, and he meets them on their side of the fence. And that's where that encounter comes that will give them that experience and explanation. That's always my hope for every non-believer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also why it's our job as the believer, when we touched on it earlier, that's why it's wild to see when the saved impressing the saved, like, because again, that's good. But the lost souls, is why we have the responsibility that we have, so that maybe they just come and peek over that other side of the fence and say, hey, you know what? Let me go ahead and give it a try. But for the believers who feel a certain type of way, I understand, the history. I understand, again, I come from the inner city. I come from the section. And so I've heard it all, man. The insults that you could think of, as far as Christianity, or, oh, why you believe in this, or, oh, man, man. But I would say for our believers to focus on what the truth is out of the Bible, and then focus on what the truth is in the relationship that you have with God. Because again, everybody experience with Christ. See, because we can't go based off others' words. We can't go based off other people's experiences.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, Mr. G, his salvation and what he's accepted does not confirm my salvation and what I've accepted. I've got to walk that line myself.
Right.
And so that's what I would encourage even our believers to do. Yeah, it's some stories. Yep, it's some history-based facts that definitely led us on the unfair side of the coin. However, it does not stop the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the last time that I checked, I'm not trying to go to the pastoral on them, but hey, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So there's the truth. And if we focus on the truth and the love of that truth, that love literally, which God had for us, for it says God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son for us. So if we focus on these truths, then all of the other things, which we're not going to just bypass like they didn't happen. We're not going to bypass, and not mention it or tuck it under the rug. But I think that our focus should be on how we could possibly change it, and then focusing on the truths as well.
Great points. So there are people that don't really follow Christianity, but they do follow the Bible, like almost like a philosophical book. My friend calls it Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. That's what he has for the Bible. And just, I know you mentioned the Bible a lot in your rhyming and everything. So what are some major lessons that that have been learned from looking at those pages for you?
Well, one, it's definitely an encouragement of love. If you ask me, I think it's the greatest love story ever written. Again, like I just spoke on, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. For what Jesus did for us, dying on the cross for our sins, that takes love. It don't take like, because I can like you and not go up there. But it takes a different depth of love. It takes a different depth of walking into that purpose. Again, I love it too, because the one that we call Savior, there's moments in it that shows you the humanity of Christ. Like when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was asking for that cup, to pass from him, but they're still surrendered and submitted to God's will, not as I will, but your will, God. And those are the things and the lessons that you could continue to take with you, because let's just put it in a more practical sense. We all are designed with a certain purpose for our lives, but we also have free will. So we could choose to do something different, but let's just take it back. Like Jesus surrendered to God's will. Us being able to take what it is that we have for our life that God has shown us and surrender it to his will. Because I could say, all right, you know what? I do music, but God, you know what? I'm going to do it secular. And God like, hold on, big dog. Like, I called you for a certain purpose. I called you for a certain reason. It took me to surrender to that for him to do what it is that he's doing now. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the major lessons that I've learned, but it's so many more that's in the Bible, man, that we could go up and down on. But I would just encourage folk to look at it because it is the greatest love story of all time. Even though you have the different prophets who came along, you have, oh my gosh, the Israelites. Let's not even just get on them. But everything that I mean, bro, if you read that Old Testament, you just be like, man, they was tripping. Man. But you look at everything that's going on, and God still having mercy, still having grace, even though, you know, they got disciplined, even though they had to go through some things. At the end of it, he still showed love and he still showed grace. And that word love, I don't know, bro, why it's so potent on this episode, but that word love, man, and I just feel in my spirit, man, God wants us to be reminded of how much he really loves us, regardless of whatever it is, you know, that we feel may have separated. Nothing can separate us from him. Nothing can separate us from his love. That's text. I'm not just giving you my opinions. You can go look that up.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir. Appreciate that. I wanted to dive into just a little bit of your music. Your first album was a poetry album. What inspired you to write a poetry album?
Didn't fully embrace the calling yet, and just being like, man, everybody, you could throw a dime in a pond and you gonna land amongst a million. That's how many people out here rapping. So I was like, I gotta bring something to the table different. And it was the poetry album. I don't know too many people who have done a poetry album, especially where, you know, I'm from. And so I was like, all right, well, this is how we gonna, you know, step out. And so that's what inspired it, man. Again, just being able to show the versatility, feeling like, you know, it was an untapped market, but also emphasizing on the poetry gift that, you know, the Lord blessed me with.
Within that album, you had a song titled 8 minutes, 46 seconds.
Absolutely.
Paying homage and honor to George Floyd.
Hot water came from the stovetop, back when you had to double click for the call waiting, and put that foil on the antenna box, when my uncles was drinking 211s, when the bus to catch was the 207, and the way our cribs was barred up, it was like we lived in a jail section, where the 1st and 15th felt like a holiday, back when shoes was up on the wire.
And you were talking about the impact of, you know, his death in that song. So what did that mean for you? Like, you know, his death, and how did you, you know, deal with that? And what did you want people to get from that song?
846 was the timestamp for sure, but it was so much more that was going on in that time, you know, for the Trayvon Martin, the Breonna Taylor, you know, Ezell Ford, Oscar Grant, all of these different folks. And I wanted to kind of vent what it was at that moment that we were all kind of feeling. Because again, we were going through the pandemic and we were going through these moments, but we really, you know, besides the Facebook post, this and that, you know, but that everybody doing that all day. Like, so I really kind of wanted to stamp what it was that I was feeling. And, you know, kind of try to offer some insight and some advice from my point of view. And so that was, you know, of course, my dedication to George Floyd, but dedication to all of those lives, man, Sam DuBose, Mike Brown, all of those different lives, unfortunately, that we were losing at that time.
I definitely love that song, man. And I could feel like the pain within the song of, you know, really questioning, like, you know, why do we have to keep experiencing these things, man? And,
man.
You know, questioning the humanity of the world and all that, man. So that's definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. The second album, This Is Not the Album. It was dedicated to your cousin, you know, that you mentioned. He played a major role in your life. In, the production of Sam 7. And you have a song entitled Joshua's Smile in the album. And within the song, you mentioned it was the hardest track that you ever, you know, had to produce and know, pretty much rap. So what was that whole process for you? Like, you know, you're grieving right at that moment, and you're creating this song, and you got to rap it and everything. So what meaning did that have for you?
Not in a million years did I think I would lose my brother. Found myself in the context, staring at your number, wishing heaven patched me through. I could ask you what to do. I know the streets of gold shining, boy, like no other. I know you putting in the word for me with the Father. I know you smiled to reunite with your mother and your father and your brother and your sister, but I miss you and I wish you had another moment.
Man, let me give a little context with it, man, so that it's seen. You know, when I jumped off the porch with the rapping, you know, after high school, I was doing live shows here in LA, and I'm particular with shows, so I've never done a show without a live band. I that's the music at that portion is just what I love. I like the unplugged feel. I gotta have the background singers, the keys, the drums, the bass.
That's the
I
best,
need
man.
it all. Yeah, come on, man. I feel like, you know, that's what, you know, shows more of the artistry as well. And so I was doing the show here in LA, and I just invited him out again. This is my blood cousin, first cousins too. So he came to the show, and he's a photographer, videographer. And he like, man, I can't believe I ain't been documenting you all this time. And, you know, man, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I'm here, man, you know. And so after that show, man, we was two peas in a pod. And that was, again, man, that was before 2012. I think that was like 2010, you know, when we linked it up. And it wasn't a day that went by that I didn't talk to that man. And so, you know, he literally, man, just served in the capacity of where his gifts will usher him in to help assist me. But even though he loved the production and the theater and the film and all of that, music is what he absolutely loved. So anything that we did musically, he was always on. Now, again, 2012 is where I dropped it because my whole team pretty much disassembled. The producer I was working with at the time, he had an opportunity to be able to go overseas and play drums. And, you know, you can't knock that. That's his dream.
Yeah.
You know, my manager at the time, he was married and he was going into having kids. So I was the youngest of everybody. So at that point in time, so it was just like, I'm looking with my hands up like, man, wait a minute, man. Like, we right on the brink of something and y'all gone. Like, everybody leaving. And so Josh was the only one who stayed there. And we did another tape, man. But when we finished it, man, the feeling of it was just gone. I felt depleted. I felt defeated. I felt like, you know what, man, let's just see what God has next. And what we thought we quit, you know, God said, nope, it's reached where it needs to reach in this season. Now let me show you what else you're going to need, you know, to put together and bring it into another season. And so after the music in 2012 is where I went to the plays. I give that context because where you come to, you know me from the 7 series, it was the conversations I would have with him like, man, you know, I feel like God is nudging me and pushing me, you know, to get back to rhyming and putting this out. And, you know, he lit up like a light bulb, like, oh, for sure. It's up. Let's do it. But it was those moments, man, in his garage, you know, recording record after record that you guys heard through 7 series. It was him who was behind the camera in a certain portion, capturing all those videos. It was him who was locked in, who was like, oh, I'm going to rock with you. We're going to make it do whatever it need to do to go forth. I mean, 6 a.m. recording sessions because we got work and other responsibilities, or we got to play and this and that. So I mentioned all of those things to say, when This Is Not the Album came about and the dedication that came with that really was because I felt like, man, when you lose something like that, that's a part of your creative process and every way you're going, the only natural question will be, God, how do I keep going? How do I continue to do this when this was the person I was in the trenches with every day? This is the person who was vibing every day. This was the person who was helping every day. And now that's absolutely gone. Where do I pick up the pieces? So when we get to Joshua Smile, I tried to record that record 3 different times. It didn't work. Full of tears, full of emotions, to the point where I was just like, man, scrap it. I ain't gonna even do it. But when the album was like 95% complete, I just felt like, and it was on the back end, because through that time that I was recording that album, not only was I grieving, but, you know, his services. We went to his services almost kind of like three weeks to a month later. And so all of those things were still processed, and everybody was asking the same question I kind of was asking, like, what you gonna do? So I had all of those pressures, and the other records were okay to get out. But that last Joshua Smile, that was the hardest record that I ever recorded in my life. And it's crazy, bro, because that's the one record I don't listen to. I was like, I got it out. I'm not playing it. Like, it's cool. It lives. I've heard it, maybe like 2 or 3 times, but it's a record that I don't play back. I just felt like that was a journal entry to be shared with the world. Yeah.
I appreciate that, because it kind of goes into things that I feel like we don't talk about a lot, which is our grieving process and how we deal, with grieving and questioning some things. And it kind of leads me to my your next album, which is Bold. And
man,
one of my favorite songs in that album is the song For the Fallen.
Commitment never budge, making it feel like years away. But at least we got the buzz, out of context more abundantly, at least we got the blood. Seen Christians bail on dark nights, at least we got the sun. God's will, Jesus had kneel, salvation's now the sum.
I like your wordplay with that song.
Yeah.
So you say you seen Christians bail on dark nights, at least we got the sun.
Come on, man.
So I was like,
come
whoa.
on. You caught that, huh?
Yes,
caught
sir.
That one.
Yes, sir.
Some of them I'll be like, man, will they catch it? But I'm glad you caught that one. That's one of my favorite lines, man.
Mine too.
That's
man.
one of my favorite lines.
First off, I love the Dark Knight. So Christian Bale, I seen some Christians Bale with Dark Knight. At least we got the sun. And the sun part is like double meaning, because Superman gets his powers from the sun, and then I'm sure you consider the superest of men. The sun. The sun.
Yeah.
So it was really, really interesting. So that song is kind of about struggling with faith and regaining faith and everything through the struggle. So I'm guessing that through the passing of your cousin, maybe you felt a little bit of that yourself, and maybe that's what inspired that song. And just if it was, how did you get through that and regain your faith?
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't necessarily on that, because, man, I can't lie. I was crushed when my cousin passed, but the Lord's word is true. And I always got to give credit where it's at, that he's near the brokenhearted, and he was near. I mean, I was feeling encouraged, like, by the people around me, but it put me in this space of solitude where I had to go lean on him, where I had to go have those conversations. So he was definitely near, definitely hugging and surrounded. And so it didn't come from that. But I went through a situation in my life where I felt like, man, maybe this ain't going to pan out how I expect it to pan out. Like what I have in mind and what I have pictured, God, it don't look like that. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, it came from having to trust God in that situation, because of all of those things. When you're going through a pruning season, which I was, the one thing that you have to do is tune your ear to God, because the enemy loves to come in on those moments where you feel defeated. He loves to come in on those moments where you already feel down, and he want to keep pounding you down and pounding you down. And if you're not, aware of that, then you'll just sit there, taking that push down and that beat down, and you're not even aware that the enemy is continuing to try to step you. Most people look at it as depression. Most people look at it like it's self-loathing, but all of those are tricks of the enemy. Like, you know what I mean? And so through that process of it not looking like how I thought it was going to look, I had to fully surrender it to God. I had to fully surrender it to him. And when I did that, he started to reveal some things to me that allowed me to be able to see, hey, just because you fail don't mean you a failure. You can get back up. And that's where For the Fallen came from, to encourage those who may have failed, to encourage those who may have felt, hey, it should look like this and it don't look like this in this season. Hey, you can get back up. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. My daughter's favorite song too on that album.
Come on, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
man. All right, I wanted to get into a little activity here. Cole, what's your favorite?
For sure.
Identifying a
Okay.
few of your favorite things before we wrap it up. I know you're a big sneakerhead, so I gotta ask.
Come on, man.
What your favorite sneaker
Yep.
is? Favorite all-time sneaker?
That's a hard question. That's like asking me which one of my children is my favorite. That's crazy. If I had to pick, I say the Air Jordan 1 High OG Breads. I know a lot of people love the Chicago's, but I'm gonna go with the Breads. All my shoes, they got stories behind them too. So that's one of them. I have to put another one in there because they like neck and neck. And I'll probably get this one just a little inch above. Is the Air Jordan 3 Black Cements. Gotta have the Nike Air on the back though. I need OG everything. Yeah. Yep.
I got you. Those are some dope ones right there.
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite song, I guess, outside of your discography about spirituality?
Oh, man. That's tough. Because contrary to belief, I don't listen to a lot of CHH, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I am in tune with it. But
you know what? Too?
I listen to more.
Some artists like J. Cole got a track. Kanye has some tracks. I know Kendrick got some tracks. They're not doing the Christian rap thing, but they're diving into the spirituality component.
Yeah, for sure. And I listen to more worship music, man, than anything, man. So for the sake of CHH, I'm gonna throw one up there that I really like. It's by No Big Deal, and it's called The Ghost. I had to go with The Ghost. It's one of those titles.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, that's fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you your top 5 dead or alive.
Let's do it. Top 5 dead or alive, no order. Pac, Kendrick, Nas, Nipsey Hussle. For the sake of a lot of discography, I'm gonna say Drake.
That's interesting. That's an interesting one.
It can be swapped out with Cole, but I don't like how close that Cole and Kendrick debate be. Kendrick is my favorite artist. Yeah. So
that is interesting. Yep. I love Kendrick too, but I love Cole too.
Yeah.
Like
man, look. I used to play this record every time before I did a show. Love Yours. Every time before I did a show, that would be the record I play before I go out. Yeah. Like I say, the spirit did change, so I don't really indulge in none of that, too much today, but those are those records, man. But and I'll speak to that too, that's my preference. It's no knock on whoever, do what they do and how they do and how the spirit moves them to do what they do. Just for me, my palate and my take, that's just how it is. But I do believe that you should still be knowledgeable of what's out there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. Favorite album of all time?
I gotta go 3, bro. I gotta just put a 3-headed monster across.
Okay.
And I'm speaking from, because that's a tough question, but I'm speaking from, if you press play right now, I can run it all the way through, number 1. Number 2, lyric for lyric, all the way, number 2. And then I'll if I've seen it live, then it just gives it some more points too. I will have to go. I didn't see this live, but and there's no particular order. Let's just put it like that. It will be Tupac, All Eyes on Me, double disc.
Okay.
It will be Good Kid, Mad City. What would be my third? Just to tie up that one. Man, that's tough because I they right here. I'm just like, man, it's like I'm in the record store thumbing through.
I know I've heard you talk about the miseducation of Lauryn Hill,
Come on,
that
man.
album.
Come on. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm thumbing through. And that one was on the tip of my tongue after another one. This is probably, for some folk probably be like, but it's one of the first albums that I ever had purchased for me. Man, it was Nelly Country Grammar.
Wow.
So, Man, I'm telling you, man, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's bringing it
That
back.
was one that I purchased, but the other one was the other one that I've purchased as well was Ludacris Back for the First Time. That very first album.
Man,
Yep.
those bringing some memories right there.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, man. Just a kid walking around Westmont, man, with a CD Walkman on.
Yes, sir. I know you're big
bro.
into the punchlines and the verses. So, what's
Of course.
your favorite verse that you've ever rapped and favorite verse that you've ever heard?
Oh, my favorite verse that I've rapped, I just got to go more so recent, is the first verse of What You Say. First and foremost, the Father get all the honor. Kingdom that I speak of ain't talking about Wakanda. Serving over nets, but I ain't Naomi Osaka. This is what Isaiah would sound like, but dipped in modern designer. Compared to the Bible, none of us could write a better verse. And it's the future of worship. Call this my metaverse. If faith come by hearing a line of megahertz, I can't stand the rain. Tell Missy Elijah said it first. 66 books. Turn a page on that. The images in the text. Put a frame on that. The wages of sin is death. Would you pay on that? He rose 3 days later. That's the big payback. Yeah. That's probably my favorite one.
That's a fun
Like,
flex
right now.
bomb right there.
Right.
That's dope, man.
That's probably my first mine. To hear somebody else, I would have to, because I'm big on storytelling. I'm gonna go with Hustle. I'm gonna go with Nipsey Hussle. Blue Laces 2. That last verse that he did on Blue Laces 2 is one of my favorite verses here. I mean, because he just paint the picture so vivid. The area and the spaces that he talks about in that record, I'm familiar with, and so it turns real cinematic for me when I listen.
I gotta do some homework.
Oh, that was gonna be the third album, but the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill too. Yeah, but Victory Lap.
All right, I gotta do some homework on that record right there.
Because Hustle is synonymous with LA, man. So they can say I'm biased, but Hustle is worldwide too. But that album, because of the high anticipation of it, when it dropped, man, I mean, it was Grammy nominated. So that goes to tell you.
All right. Last one here. Favorite life gem that anybody has given you?
I'm gonna go back to Hustle. The highest human act is to inspire. Ermias Ascadon.
Yes, sir.
The highest human act is to inspire. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Bringing it back to hip hop. It's the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Some people have said it's grown. Some say something's happening because record sales and album sales are going down. Like, so what are your thoughts about where hip hop has been, where it's going, and where would you like to see it going forward? And you could infuse Christian rap in there as well.
As far as regular hip hop, or like my save folk like to say, secular hip hop. I think, man, it's coming to a place where even if you look at now, again, because I always say, I could have appreciation without association, which basically mean I could appreciate what it is without actually, it being in tune for me, or not saying in tune for me, but it not being something that I go and participate in.
Right.
But being aware of it, looking at the space of where hip hop is today, it's clear, man, that there's very few who are at that top, right? When we were children and kids, you'd be like, oh man, that album's great. Oh, that production is great. And it's a lot of factors that play into it. Just like, we kind of live in a microwave society. Everything comes quick, and we on to the next thing. That could, be kind of, shortchanging the game too.
Right.
But it just feels like what's being spoken about, what's being, placed on these records and all of these different situations, when it comes down to the production, when it comes down to the lyricism, when it comes down to the artistry. I don't want to say that it's being robbed, but what I will say is it's not as potent as it once was.
I agree.
I think that that's kind of drowning the game out. There's always going to be a love for hip hop because it's just stamped, right? And hip hop has made many people from the areas that, you know, most of us come from millionaires.
Right.
So because of that, it's always going to be something that's glorified out of our community. And because of that, hip hop is always going to continue to have a special place in people, not just hearts, because old records give us a certain feel. It gives us a certain nostalgic view. But what it also done for certain people out of that community is always going to be somebody's aspiration. And so I think from that standpoint, now just because it's your aspiration don't mean that the art is good. Like, but at the same time, you know, it will keep the conversation of hip hop alive. And prayerfully that it does return to the roots of what it once was. I know the youngest be like, man, you know, that's old, man, we doing something different, blah, blah, blah. And I know the old heads be like, you know, man, it's not having a, you know, it don't give us, you know, that certain criteria that it used to. And I think we just looking for more people who could blend both worlds and have a new existence today. As far as Christian hip hop, again, this is a very, very touchy subject for my saints. I think Christian hip hop is at a place right now where there's more awareness. You know, more people are being notified about it. But I also, if I could just be completely honest and transparent, I also think it's a saturation era right now where it's overly saturated. And I think because the requirements aren't much, anybody who pick up a microphone and you got a platform, there's nobody to tell you no. And so, or there's nobody to, you know, curve it on how it should be or what it should be. Because even when it is curved on what it could be or what it should be or how it should sound, it's now pointing back to the text of certain scriptures that might give them some type of justification. But most of the time, those are taken out of context for one's, you know, personal approval or personal gain. And so as I look at it, man, I think that the awareness for Christian hip hop will continue to rise. But the fear is if it's not enough, going back to the word, it's not enough theological aspect in it, and we just go on vibes alone, it's not that it will die, because Jesus already died for our sins and he's alive today. And because that will be a conversation until he returns, Christian hip hop is not going to die, because you associate the word Christian with Christ, to be Christ-like, followers of Christ. And so because that conversation is going to continue until he returns, then Christian hip hop is never going to die. But the potency of it is going to be based upon the people who really do the work, that goes back to the word, goes back to the Father, goes back and start understanding that when you get on this microphone, whether you like it or not, you are a minister of the gospel. That is what you're doing. You're telling people about God. It should never point back to you. It should always point back to him. And so I won't say what it will do or what it won't do, the if, ands, or but scenarios, but what I will say is the potency of it is dependent upon the people who will do the work. Not just the, oh man, I'm getting some likes over here, some comments, cool, that's great. But seasons change. And when the seasons change, where's the foundation? Where are you really rooted? Are you walking in what you reciting? And it's no judgment nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? I ain't on here saying certain names and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Do what you do. But the potency of it, the responsibility that we have, because you look like, again, I didn't grow up in Christian hip hop. However, I'm aware of the history. So you got like the cross movement, but I'm more so in knowing with like Lecrae. That's kind of like where it stopped from my knowledge of it, you know, but he paved the way, you know what I mean? And so the responsibility that other people have is, and Lecrae, he paved the way because he paved the way, number one. But number two, the next people with the responsibility to continue this thing forward, you got to have some oil with it. You got to have something that's meaningful with it. And what's meaningful with it is you pointing people back to God. And for me personally, when I look at the whole scope of it, that should always be the first priority.
Right.
Making sure that it's leading people back to Christ. You are just the vessel that has been afforded to deliver these verses, but it should always lead people back to Christ. And I say it in the last record, Truth in LA, on the album. I say 17 storms are way different than 35. Oh no, 17 storms are way different than 25. By 35, pray we supply songs in their lives that give them God, back to the word the Father supplied, versus leading them to jump at a show for IG Live. Because at 17 is great, you know, to vibe out, because that's cool. And I get it. Oh, well, it's just a vibe. It introduces them into, that's cool. And if that's what the milk is at that point, then good. But by the time they turn 25 and these real life experiences start hitting them, because now they out in the world, they're going to need a little bit of meat to chew on, because that milk going to run straight through. So that's my hope, man, for the future of CHH, that I'm not saying take the vibe out, but what I'm saying is make it a better blend. Don't, I'm not going to say refuse, but don't exclude the word, include the word. I'll leave it at that.
Great points. Great points. Yes, sir.
I told you, man, that subject we could talk about all day, you know,
and I think
it gets lengthy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it should. And I think that you're doing an excellent job of making that blend happen and paying homage to hip hop and what it's supposed to be. So I appreciate the fact that you're doing that. So when it comes to, you know, legacy, within your own, you know, dynamic, and, you know, you're writing music, you're writing plays, your artistry is pretty vast, and what you're doing, you're directing, you're writing films as well, and all this kind of stuff. Man. So when you look at your legacy, what is it that you want it to be like when it's all said and done?
I have two levels. I have one more in the practical sense that it's not on the spiritual aspect, and then I have one on the spiritual aspect. For the more practical, for the personal, when it's all said and done, man, I want my people to be able to look and say, he stood for something. You know, he didn't have a blueprint, because we did it. He didn't have a blueprint, but he went with what he believed the Lord was calling him to do. He went full force with his gifts, and they made room for him. Well, that kind of took it back spiritual right there. But that's what I would want my people to look at. Like, man, you know, those odds did come. You know, the chips was stacked up against him, but he stood tall and went through, and it changed the landscape of the future for my bloodline. As far as spiritual, I just wanted to be able to, when people play it back, my legacy, they look and say, man, on every aspect that he was given, every platform that he was given, he shed himself to encourage people about God. You know, he stood on that. He told the truth. He stood for what he believed in, and he didn't shy and back down with it. You know, not cliche, but he was bold with it. And and yeah, man. And that's what I want the legacy to stand for, you know, when it's all said and done.
Yes, sir. And I think that will definitely hold up, man. And man, it's been definitely a pleasure, man, chatting with you. And
man. For sure, man. I appreciate the patience too, man. It's been like a year in the making. So
yes, sir.
I appreciate you, bro, for sure.
Like, it didn't disappoint, man. Like I say, man, the longer it seems that I wait for an interview, the better it's gonna be, man. So I was excited, man.
Come on.
It did not disappoint, man.
For
sure. You could do us one more favor, man, and leave us with your favorite quote and what it means to you.
Yeah. I think I gave you my favorite quote, but I can repeat it. That's I mean, that's the top one. But I could give some gems though, you know, sure. Maybe to the listeners who feel like, you know, they want a little word or something, or, you know, looking for some, man. The two words that I live by, man, that my cousin said, and was so simple, was keep going. And I want to encourage everybody who's listening, when those seasons get tough, because they will get tough, when those trials and those tribulations come, the best thing you can do is keep going. And I'll put it in a picture like this. Why would you stop in the middle? You know, you came too far to look back now. And then again, you came too far to not keep going to see what's on the other side of that. So the best thing you can keep doing through the tears, through the hurt, through the pain, through the fatigue, keep going. Another thing my cousin would always say, ain't no plan B. Plan B is plan A. So keep going.
Appreciate that, man. And speaking of you know, to keep going, for those that want to keep going and listening to some more of Leon Anderson, where can they find your work?
Man, you can find me on Instagram at I am Leon Anderson. I'm on TikTok barely, but it's pretty much the same thing from the gram at I am Leon Anderson. Man, you can find me on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, all your good streaming, YouTube, Amazon at Leon Anderson. And YouTube, you can find me at I am Leon Anderson. The Lord has given me a certain thing to do in this series where I'm this season, where I'm having a series that's called 10 Minutes with Leezy, and I literally break down every record on the album. We've been having fun with it so far. Again, man, we ain't been looking at the outcome of it and this or that. We just moving on obedience, where God will take it and he elevate it. That's in his time, his view, and it don't have nothing to do with my hands. All I can do is go and be obedient, man. So come subscribe over there. At I am Leon Anderson on YouTube, and we dropping episodes weekly, man. That's about it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, man. And listeners, you definitely will not be disappointed. I don't think I've been disappointed in anything I've heard from your discography, man. So it's heavy, man. You'll be thinking, you'll be, you know, a lot, man. There's a lot into it, man. So I appreciate just all the work, man, because I know there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to making and producing and directing and all that stuff, man. So I appreciate your work, man. And definitely, you know, support Leon's work and what he's doing. Even, you know, religious or not. I think you can get something from the music, regardless of whether you're a Christian or not. So, and I know I have, definitely. So appreciate your work, man. Listeners, support. And of course, remember, your mind is the most powerful tool in the universe. If you can think it, you can do it. If you believe in it, you can be it. And if you fight for it, you can have it. The world is yours. This has been your host, Mr. G, and I will see you next time on MasterMine.
So every day I'm going hard. I'm talking business, bank accounts, and credit cards. And somehow we defeat the odds and making sure that no one starves illegal or you had a